start the train.
Hold on.
Hello, everybody. Dr. Andrew Blackwood here, also known as Coach Drew, and this is part 2 of the courageous response to COVID-19. I'm here with 5 of my wonderful friends who serve the community in various capacities. So I will let them introduce themselves today, but before they do, just a heads up, we're going to be talking about some facts as we know them, but also our experiences and our perspectives about things like safety, communal response. We're going to talk a little bit about anxiety and some of the things that we are seeing as far as opportunities go for positive change. So let's start with, let's change it up a little bit. Let's start with Erica Elita. Please let the people know who you are, where you're from, and how you serve other people.
Hello, hello. My name is Erica Elita, also known as Erica Edwards. I am here in the great city of Toronto, here in Canada, originally from Montreal. I am the talk show host of a wonderful show called What Matters, which appears on Toronto Caribbean Network. I serve my community by facilitating courageous conversations, and I'm really pleased to be a part of this one. So welcome, and let's get to helping you with this anxiety that you're feeling.
Nice, nice, nice. All right, let's move on to Dr. Joan. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and how you help people.
So my name is Joan Samuels-Dennis, also known as Dr. Joan. I am located in Brampton, just north of Toronto, here to talk about COVID-19, which I've been getting so many texts and videos and that sort of thing. So happy to engage in the conversation. I help people. I help people with psychotherapy. I'm a nurse psychotherapist here in Brampton. I'm just moving out of that to then serve people who serve others. So looking forward to building a new program called the Peace Ambassador Program here in Brampton. I also help women tell their stories. So as you're overcoming and healing and doing all of those wonderful transformation things, I help you move through that by writing about it and have a book project called Becoming: The Journey to Love.
Very nice, very nice, very nice. Let's talk to Denise. Denise, let the people know who you are, where you're from, and how you help people.
All right. Hello, my name is Denise Pierson. I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor in Illinois, not Chicago, but about 2.5 hours south of Chicago, primarily a trauma therapist. So this is my area in terms of trauma response, trauma actions, anxiety and depression in the midst of COVID-19.
Awesome. Well, I know that you are helping a lot of people, and this is a good season for what you and everybody else on this in this conversation does. Let's hear from Dr. Flores Carter.
Thank you, Dr. Drew. Hello, my name is Dr. Kendra Flores Carter. I am currently an assistant professor at California Baptist University in Riverside, California. I'm coming to you from Fontana, California, which is in San Bernardino County, the largest county in the United States. And currently I work a lot with pregnant women and children, and I have my organization, Caribbean Moms Network, where we do a lot of education around maternal child health. And so I'm definitely here to speak into the experiences that many women, maternal mothers, probably are having right now. So welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And the other male participant here, Mr. Matthew Phifer. Tell us where you're at, who you help.
Hey guys, my name is Matthew Phifer. I am a therapist and toxic relationship specialist in Dallas, Texas. I am in Collin County, so this is, I heard Kendra mention that she's in the largest county in the United States. I'm in the fastest growing county in the United States. So I help people heal and deal with toxic relationships without the trauma of those toxic relationships continuing to linger in their lives. I have a podcast that's on all major platforms called Toxic to Triumph, And you can find more about me on mattpfeiffercoaching.com.
You know, I'm really excited to hear what everybody has to say and some updates. Let's start with some facts. What's the latest in terms of some numbers? Erica, give me your perspective. What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
Well, I do check once a day. I check a website that is the COVID tracker. So it gives you numbers throughout the world. My family originates from a small island called Montserrat, which has a very tiny population. So I've been keeping my eye on that. Yes, the numbers are increasing worldwide overall, which right now is to be expected. China seems to be coming out of it, and the rest of the world is, what I'm hoping is that this is the point that we're peaking. A lot of people returning from Ontario from vacation and so forth abroad. And we were actually just issued an emergency warning to our phones, like the same as the Amber Alerts, telling people that are coming home from the airports that they have to stay inside for the next 14 days. Before, everyone here was being very Canadian, suggesting it, and now it is the law. So the numbers are going up, but like I said, from my logic, it's because a lot of people are returning. And we are going to get to this, but I make sure that I take time in the day to check in what's going on, and then I turn it off. So I also pay attention to the recovery numbers. Don't obsess just about the numbers of the deaths, but pay attention to the fact that the recovery numbers are high. And the last I checked, they were at least 5 times the amount of the deaths. So that is reassuring for me.
That's awesome. That's good to know. I have family from Montserrat too, so thanks for the update. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. You see, in these conversations, you always learn more. You learn more from your friends and your family in times like these, when we ask questions, when we look for information. I'm wondering, Dr. Joan, did you have any stats that you wanted to kind of share?
I'm looking at one website that kind of updates continually as they get new information. So as of about a half hour ago, we are looking at worldwide now 528,000 cases and about 23,000, almost 24,000 deaths that are related to COVID-19.
And I'm just receiving the emergency alert right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it is in French, and right? And it's because when you mentioned it, Erica, I was saying to myself, I didn't receive one. So here we go. Yeah, and it does talk about you are required to isolate for 14 days. Everyone in the world is basically in need of our cooperation. Yes, and here it is in English. Do not visit stores, families, or friends. Everyone should stay home to stop the spread. Okay. Travelers returning, you are at high risk of spreading COVID-19. So we are seeing how formally processes and systems are catching up. And before we hop over to what's happening in the States, I'll share my experience a little bit about that today. Most of you on the line are not aware of this, but today is day 12 of my quarantine since coming back from Portugal. And I haven't really experienced symptoms that required me to go to the emergency services or to seek healthcare support. However, I was informed that somebody that I knew wasn't feeling well. And with things being what they are, my kids are home, they're home for school now, at least for the next few weeks. I'm definitely going to need some support to continue working from home, but helping them because they're 6 and 3, they need help to engage with the learning online. So I'm asking a family member of mine to come over So I wanted to just double check because that family member lives with my dad who was in his 70s. So I wanted to just double check and make sure that I got the sign off that I was okay. And here was my experience. I drove up to the hospital and they had people at the gate with masks on that would start the screening process. They would ask, you know, are you a healthcare provider? And if not, which this capacity I'm not, so they sent me to another area where I could park. And then I got out and it looked like people would line up, get a number, and then get back into their car if they were going to be screened. But one of the people asked me, so this is the second stage of screening, about my symptoms. And I didn't have a fever. I'm not having any respiratory problems. So then they moved to ask, you know, why are you here? And I let them know that somebody I know seemed to be having some difficulty, but it wasn't confirmed. So because it wasn't confirmed, they said, we're not even gonna let you go into the doors, into the hospital, because you're at greater risk of catching it. So they gave me a package, which basically reinforced all the things that we've been told. You wash your hands, self-isolate. If you're gonna be around people, wear a mask if you're not sure. If it's been within the 14 days and you have any kinds of symptoms, or even if you haven't, if you're going to interact with them, wear the mask. And then if you have any issues or symptoms that come up, then come back. So to me, I don't know if they could have done anything better. One of the videos I was watching was talking about, you know, we've been slow to react. We weren't ready for this. So thankfully things have kind of improved, and it looks like people are doing what it is that's going to help people as best as they can. What's the lay of the land on the U.S. side? Let's start with you, Matt. What are you seeing in terms of protocol and maybe numbers? What are you seeing? What are you hearing over there?
It's very different depending on what part of the U.S. that you're on. California and New York have been hit the hardest. New York has been is really having a difficult time because everyone lives so closely. Down in Texas, where I'm at, it's really just now starting to pick up steam, and they're considering Louisiana the new hotspot, in particular down here in New Orleans. That's kind of been the new talk is New Orleans and Louisiana. That's been a major concern for people. And
when you say it's a new hotspot, you mean that numbers are escalating there?
Numbers are escalating there. Yeah, and so it's really starting to take off here in the U.S. And there's a lot of concern if we're going to become more like Italy, and there's a lot of concern also on how truthful some of our politicians are being, and there's a big divide on if we should put public health first or if we should put the economy first here in the U.S. Not only for the U.S. citizens, but also because our economy is so vital to the world as well. And so there's a big debate right now on what should come first. And really, in my opinion, it shouldn't come first. I think public health definitely should come first. But that's really what the talk is here in the U.S. at this point.
And I remember last time we spoke, you were saying that there were a lot of people in your part of the world who weren't really seeming to take it very seriously. Are you seeing any change in that?
I think here where I'm at, where I'm starting to see the attitudes start to change, where people are starting to take it more seriously. And I think that's because of the increase of not only are we neighbors to Louisiana, where we're starting to see that hotspot like really hit home right next door to us, but I know here where I live, there's just within the last couple of days, there was a nursing home that got hit. And, you know, obviously with that being very self-contained, there's a lot of concern on that being spread quickly throughout the nursing home. And so a lot of people it's really starting to hit home with people here in Texas, in particular where I live in Dallas.
Okay. Thanks for the update there, Matt. Talk to us, Dr. Carter. What are you seeing? What are you hearing over in California?
Oh yeah. Well, I checked the California CDC website for the public health, and as of the 25th, it looks like the last time they updated it was the 25th. We had about 3,006 cases and 65 deaths. That's probably a little bit higher today. But what I'm noticing is the ages. Like like I look at that and the age range of the cases. And from 0 to 17, we had 37 cases. Between the age of 18 to 49, we had 1,505 cases. Between the ages of 50 to 64, we had 764 cases. And 65 plus, we had 678 cases. I think this is important to look at because for the most part, we've been hearing that the majority of people who are getting ill and who are really significant is older adults. But from what I'm looking at here, it's between the ages of 18 to 49 that have the highest amount of cases. So that's definitely eye-opening for me. What the news is reporting is, a little bit different at times. And so I think it's important to look at the statistics to know kind of like where you are with things like this. It also broke it down to the number of females who are experiencing or who tested positive. And we had 1,309 females who tested positive and 1,665 males who tested positive. So the cases are growing day by day. I know our mayor, our mayor is very on it. And then the governor of California, Governor Newsom, he's definitely making sure that people are social distancing. They are stopping people. They are making sure that they're abiding by, the guidelines that he set, which is for us to remain at home. So I'm really seeing that people are staying in. I went to the store yesterday. I had my mask. Of course, we were practicing social distancing. And you see where they're like in the line in the grocery store, they have tapes where people are supposed to stand 6 feet apart. So, it was good to see that. I also ended up going to the bank and it was the same thing. You had a security at the door who was saying, okay, you can go in, and they were making sure that people were staying 6 feet apart. So I see that they're really taking it serious here in California. And I think there's definitely a need to. So it is predicted that the cases are going to get higher as well.
I'm very curious because I know you work a lot with moms and you do a lot of work in the community. Are there particular concerns that have moms concerned and expecting mothers?
I am glad that you asked that because I actually was watching a video by UCLA OBGYNs, Dr. Rao and Dr. Asher, and they did a YouTube training where they talked about pregnant women and how it would be affecting pregnant women. And they said that to date, there is really not anything or any evidence out there that says that pregnant women are at higher risk. So to get COVID-19. So I know there's a lot of anxiety for moms. I knew when I was pregnant, it was like, oh, I don't cough near me because I don't want to get it. So I know that's significant. But the doctors are saying that as of now, if you're pregnant and you test positive for COVID, there is not a significant risk. And it do not increase your abilities to really get sicker. So you'll be okay. And if you're pregnant, you're not at higher risk to get COVID-19. So that's what they're finding right now with the preliminary results that they are getting in doing a study with pregnant women.
I know that in New York, women who are giving birth in New York, they're not allowing spouses. They're not even allowing. Kendra, you'd be better at the terminology than I would be. But the coach, what's the name of the
doulas?
Yeah, so they're not allowing either one of them. It's literally doctors and mothers.
Mm-hmm. Yes, only. Yes, that is true. That's what's being practiced right now. Is that just the mom and the in the delivery room with the doctors.
Wow.
So it is, I know for many moms, you want to have that support, but for the safety, I know many hospitals are implementing those steps now to be safe.
Yes, I appreciate these conversations because it helps us to identify the different experiences that we get to anticipate that our loved ones will have.
The death experience is different too, because families, if somebody is infected or has the virus, then they immediately are then put in hospital, or if the illness progresses to the point where you're now serious, you have no one that would normally be there for you. So that is a very different experience as well. You're in isolation alone.
And I definitely, I know that's one of the topics we wanted to come back to in terms of grief and loss, but let's talk a little bit about, because my mind, when we talked about hospitals, and even when I went to the hospital today, I'm thinking about, what about the people who are in the hospital, didn't have COVID before it broke out, but they weren't able to leave? I mean, it makes me think about pre-existing situations like trauma. Bess, can you speak to what you are seeing in terms of people who are dealing with trauma or were dealing with trauma? What's this doing in terms of, is it helping them feel better? Is it helping them feel worse? Can you give us an update on what you're seeing?
Just to make sure I'm getting clarity what you're asking, you're saying if they had trauma, is the COVID exacerbating symptoms? Or so here in Illinois, just to update with cases really quick, we're probably at about 2,000 in the state and about 700 new cases diagnosed in the last couple of days. Okay, so I'm in the greater Peoria area. We have about 500,000 people. There's been about 6 confirmed cases, and they do seen what Matt was saying, more in the nursing home and in the hospital setting so far. I think there was one guy who worked for a major corporation. He was in China. He flew home. Of course, he had exposure. So I think that was part of, or one of the cases at least. What I'm noticing as a trauma therapist is a little bit of exacerbated symptoms, but the symptoms align with the times. Everyone, under the sun is under transition. Everyone is underneath this cloud of darkness. No one's escaping it. So what I'm finding is with my clients, they already are aware they have trauma. So they were already working on things. So they're able to transition a little bit better through this difficult time versus someone who says, hey, I don't have any problems. There's nothing wrong with me. Well, you have problems now, and it seems more evident. So I don't know if COVID's exacerbating the symptoms as much as the reality of the world is everyone's transitioning. Everyone's going through, so it's more apparent that anxiety, depression, trauma, addictions, they would increase. I know specifically in this area, we had a report of the increase in abuse and domestic violence because people are forced to stay at home together who otherwise would be avoiding. So definitely a rise to me, in my opinion, as a trauma therapist. It's more apparent, but it may not be the obvious to the person, given that they probably have been avoidant of their issues prior to this point.
Yeah, I think that's the general human way, right? When things happen, our go-to is not necessarily to dig into them and address them. We want to move away from them and cope with other things, other distractions like work. And I call it productive procrastination. I do that very well, right? There's a list of things that would be great and are important for me to do, but I'll do these other things instead. And I guess if you could speak to this, Erica, I'd be very curious. In terms of a communal consciousness, do you think that with everything that is happening all around the world, do you think that people are kind of moving over to maybe being closer to a shared experience or on the same page?
That's interesting. Yes, I do think an extreme circumstance like this does move us to a shared experience. If you notice, everything else we complained about prior to this has now disappeared, right? So we're no longer hearing about a lot of the divisional issues that we were facing as a society, race, so on. Now we're focused on this. Also, because a lot of people feel that they're in the same boat, feeling isolated, feeling secluded, financial worries, it it's almost binding. It pulls us together. Now, a lot of we're very fortunate in this time that we have the technology that we do, because we're using that in a way that we never used it before. A lot of people are saying they never video conference prior to this. They weren't using video chat the way that they did, and now they're connecting on those levels. A lot of phone calls are being made. That's something that a lot of people are saying are surprising, is that their phones ring. They're no longer getting text messages because people want to talk. So I do feel that the fear that as humans, we cover ourselves in a lot of things, money and status, location, and so forth. And we can dress up our cores in many, many different ways. But when we strip it all away, we're very much the same. We have the same fears. The same things bring us joys. So now that a lot of that has been stripped away, I feel that we are at our base. A lot of us have gone to our base, and we're worried about survival, and I think that is a shared experience for all humans, is the desire to survive. So in terms of coming together as a community, I'm seeing so many beautiful gestures and actions and help. So I think that in many ways we are getting closer as a worldwide community. I mean, even walking outside, people are they're going slower, and you're seeing a lot of waves and hellos. So that's the feeling I get where I live, is that people have had to slow down in so many other ways. They've been forced to look around them, and they're seeing their neighbors.
Yeah, I can definitely appreciate that. I'm hearing the same thing. I'm hearing about people, being intentional about getting groceries for people. I'm finding systems that work, right? So one gentleman that I'm working with, he was saying that his grandparents, and he would, get them to make a list and leave it on the porch on a particular date because he's less vulnerable. He will go pick it up and run the errand for them. And that in and of itself helps him to feel empowered. He knows what to do. He knows it's possible, right? There's something about that shifts our focus from the anxiety and the things that aren't in our control to the things that actually are, tapping into who we are as people, the best parts of us. Matt, I'm curious, what are your thoughts about how people are dealing with anxiety where you're at? What are the things that you're hearing that are helpful and not so much?
Well, I think that one of the things that people are doing I think that there's a lot of social anxiety because of the isolation. We recently went under quarantine, so there's a lot of social anxiety. How am I going to, remain in contact? How am I going to stay close when we're required to stay apart all at the same time? And I've seen a lot of people do a lot of things that are very, very unique. I've seen people connect and connect their phones to their TVs and play Simon Says with their kids. People are coming up with a lot of very creative ideas to stay connected through the social anxiety, to make sure that they keep that bond with their loved ones. I think there's also a lot of anxiety with finances. A lot of people have been laid off. A lot of people don't know if they're going to come back to their jobs. A lot of people don't know how they're going to pay their bills. And we also don't know how long this is going to last. We don't know, typically, so with the common cold and with the flu, we know that when the weather warms up, that those things kind of dissipate. We don't know what Corona is going to do. Corona may be looking forward to the summer. We don't know what's going to happen. So just with the uncertainty, I think that we've seen a lot of people's anxiety increase. And then for me, with my practice, a lot of people I talk to, you're in close quarters with people that you don't want to be with. You were planning on leaving this person, or you were with you. So we take for granted a lot of times that we want to stay connected. And there's a lot of people that are in close quarters, are in quarantine with people that they no longer want to be with. So there's a lot of anxiety there too. And I think that there's a variety of ways that people are dealing with this. Number one, meditating. Number two, I think that there's a lot to be said for doing a lot of the little things. Reading, a lot of just like taking care of yourself, you know, still working out, trying to maintain a routine when the routine that you had previous is now gone. Making a list, you know, there's a lot of anxiety because there's not really a direction that you're headed into, so to speak. But if you make a list, and if you have like a task at hand, if you have a purpose behind what you're doing, you know, it alleviates. People are finding that alleviates a lot of that anxiety that they have with so much uncertainty.
I appreciate those really practical pieces, Matt. Joan, what are your thoughts? What are you seeing in terms of ways that people are helping themselves to manage that anxiety?
So I usually offer a number of ideas to my clients, and so I kind of leave it up to them to kind of select from the things that I suggest. You know, probably in 2016 in November, my husband had a massive stroke. He actually traveled to China, and as soon as he landed and got off the plane, he had a massive stroke right there in the airport. And so what I talk to all of my clients about is being present. Because if you focus on the future and you begin to imagine a negative outcome, it totally takes away from your calm and your ability to think clearly. And so part of practicing presence, or being present in the moment and being able to just walk through your day, being totally at your highest level of being able to think clearly, function clearly, is to be present. And so Matt talked about meditation. And in addition to that, I do something called centering prayer, which is a type of meditation, but it's more of a listening type of meditation. So, you know, a lot of us are always looking for other people to answer our questions about the future, what's going to happen. But a lot of us have an inward knowing that if we connect with ourselves inwardly, there is a calm, a sense of knowing that comes with that allows us to just, you know, walk in the everyday and be present in the moment, and then being able to embrace a future with bright, positive outcomes. So listening prayer, centering prayer, it's also called, it's an app you can download. Usually it has some scriptures that's at the front that you read. Your meditation is grounded in a single word, like hope. And you simply come back to the center. It's simply a practice of, you sit in silence, you focus on that word, you're about building relationship with self, with others, with God. And in that moment, then you're able to be present. You're able to know certain things. You're able to ask questions and get answers. So that's some of the ways that I teach my clients to be calm in kind of those moments that cause crisis.
That's awesome, Joan. And I think what you and Matt and everyone else on this call have been talking about are ways to take care of ourselves and ways to see the future. And these are real opportunities. Like, these are real life opportunities. There are the concerns, but then there are the opportunities as well. And I was talking with a couple, and the reality of, you know, being together in a space, you know, in a time like this, doesn't mean that all of the other challenges have gone away. In fact, they're intensified, like Matt was illustrating. Like, and in this situation, it's not that they didn't want to be together, but it's that this issue is present, this issue is present, this issue is present. The stress of the season, now kids are, you know, always around. And so the dynamic is different. The challenges haven't gone away, and it's easy to overlook the strengths that you have.
Yeah, the little tools that are available to you and you alone, right? And available to everybody else, but unless each person is practicing that, then you really have on rest. You really feel like there is a lot of conflict. What I have found, and one of the things that I often say to to my clients. When I first started meditating, I would do different types of meditation, but there was one particular meditation that I saw a difference with everybody in my household. And it was simply imagining yourself sitting with the other person in front of you and simply pouring out love, like visualizing pouring out breath on them, breath of life, but also pouring out love, right? So there were mornings when I did one type of meditation, but then there were mornings when I did this type of meditation. And I would simply visualize my husband, my children sitting in front of me, and I would pour out love to them. And on the mornings when I did not do this particular meditation, everybody would just kind of wake up, because I'd be up a couple of hours before. Everybody would just kind of wake up and get on with their day. But on the morning when I did that visualization, they'd be like, Mom, you know, and they would just rush into the room. They'd want to hug me. So we send off energy. We send off those things that are within us. And if you're fearful of somebody, then oftentimes what's going to happen is they sense that fear, and it causes greater conflict. If you are in a space where you could not care less about somebody, they sense that too. So everything about us matters. Everything about how we are right now in the present matters. And it's important for us to be just intentional about even those people that we do not get along with, intentional about sending them love, sending them peace, sending them hope, sending them joy. And as you send them those things, it returns back to you, sometimes doublefold.
I love it, Joan, and I agree 100%. And one of the reasons why I went to Portugal to begin with was to reinforce for myself the reality that the best gift that I have to give to the world is me. And we often in times like these look outside of ourselves to other people for answers and for direction. And I think that's relevant because everyone has their level of expertise and access to information, but we all have access to the best of ourselves, and learning how to access that, I think it's key. And I was doing a workshop about, you know, increasing our faith in fear-filled times. And I'm going through this experience like everybody else is. I might be a few steps ahead because of these years of doing psychotherapy and now coaching. And I'm finding myself at a greater place of peace. And it's actually really reassuring, because I'm finding for myself, the peace isn't so much a confidence in me as much as it is an awareness that I'm going to be okay, that I have everything I need. And as a believer, I'm sitting by the stream of the river that flows, and I can drink from that stream. I can get peace. I can get calm. And if I get turned around and I forget where it is, that river comes to me. It finds me. So I'm finding so much of a greater peace and a greater sense of faith in this time. And I'm wondering, anybody else on the call experiencing that, or is it just me?
I want to combine what you just said with actually what I was going to chime in and say, because I know a lot of people are also experiencing a lot of anxiety because we don't want to get sick. The reality of it is that we're all fighting a virus, and we don't want to get sick, and we don't want to spread the virus to others, and we also don't want to overwhelm the healthcare system. So there's a lot of anxiety there, but the way that I've found peace, regardless if I get sick or not, is through educating myself. And also I think that there's a lot to be said for preparation. And, you know, there's an old saying that, you know, a man who fails to prepare prepares for failure. And so therefore, if you prepare yourself for the event, in the event that you or your loved one or anyone else in your household does get sick, what would I do? You know, and I think that I think a lot of people have a lot of anxiety, you know, well, what if I get sick? And they assume that I won't. Well, if you prepare as if you would, or if you prepare in the event that someone in your household does, what would you do? And I think that for me, I have a lot of peace. I know exactly who I would call. I know exactly what I would do. I know exactly what room I would be in. I know exactly who would be there to help if need be. I know where I can access food. I know what food I need to go to. I know what hospital I need to go to. I know, and if those hospitals as well, I have a plan B system. You know, so there's a lot of peace that comes with that because there's preparation that comes behind it. And, you know, going back to what you were just saying about the stream and about to me, it sounds like you're prepared. You know exactly what stream to go to. You know exactly where you're going to get your food from. So to me, there's educational piece and there's a preparation piece that, and studies have shown that that's how you would survive something like this. Going back I want to say a couple of decades ago at this point, the Chicago fire. There was a fire in a Chicago nightclub, and they found that the problem with that was that no one knew what to do when there was a fire. So what happened was that the entire club tried to exit out the same exact door, which trapped everyone in that fire. But there was plenty of exits for everyone to get out. If everyone knew where the exits were, if everyone was prepared for that fire, everyone would have gotten out safely. And it's the same situation here. Unfortunately, yes, there's going to be people that we all know and love that are going to get sick. But if we're prepared, it may alleviate not only the anxiety, but it may decrease the amount of people that are sick to the point where it leads to death.
I love it, Matt. I appreciate how strategic you are and articulate. And I really know that we're also different. And to the points that Dr. Joan made earlier about being able to calm ourselves and settle ourselves, to be able to breathe, and to be able to transition from worry to concern. Because when we worry, our wheels are just spinning. We're worried about the worst case scenario. We see ourselves in the future dying, and it's just negative and it's horrible. As opposed to concern, being present enough to know, okay, I have what I need for today. However, if this likely scenario or this possible scenario were to come about, what would I do? Where would I go? Who would I call? And I think that way of thinking comes more easily to us when we are calm. I know we want to transition because we could sit here and talk forever. So if everybody could kind of give me your last thoughts. I know we wanted to talk a little bit about grief and loss. So if we could talk a little bit about maybe something that you are aware that you have lost in the face of this whole experience, as well as how that's transitioning you to move forward in a better way. I would love to hear that. And I think people will benefit from connecting with both the loss as well as the opportunity to move forward. So let's start with you, Dr. Carter, and then we'll go to Bess next.
Okay, well, I think for the most part, the loss, I'm more of a social butterfly. So I really like to be out there engaging with the community, engaging with people. And I really kind of lost that connection. But I think I'm looking at COVID as a positive break in a way, because I was getting so busy to the point where I had to start scheduling like my kids' appointment in my calendar. And that's never happened, and so it kind of puts a break in it, and it's helping me to rediscover me. I've always wanted to start taking my vitamins and start really becoming more healthier, and just being home, I've been able to really do that and set a plan for myself. Bonding with my children. I come from Belize, and so I was able to sit with my kids and teach them Jackson Ball, and it was just so fun to just sit and play with them, teaching them how to play it. And so I've never done that. And if everything would have been continuing the way it's been continuing, I would have probably never had the opportunity to sit with my children and teach them how to play that. And that's really how I'm transitioning. And I'm choosing to transition in a way where I'm really trying to connect more with my children, because I think that connection with me being out there and me being, doing a lot, I've kind of not necessarily lost it, but it's kind of not as much as I want it to be. And so the moments that I'm here, I have to teach them. So I'm forced to be their teacher now, and seeing where they're at as far as their schoolwork is concerned, and looking over and reviewing their assignments and saying, wait a minute, you didn't get this right, And so just to be able to do that to me is a joy, and I appreciate that. And I'm also taking time to reflect on my growth as a woman, my growth as a mother. It's not easy, and it hasn't been easy, but I'm kind of really enjoying the moment of just being home and being a mom right now, and realizing that, okay, I need to figure out the balance. So I'm appreciative of that, even though in the, in all of this chaos, there is still some peace that I'm discovering, and I'm enjoying that. So I think that's pretty much how I'll probably be moving forward, is just rediscovering me and bonding more with my children, and really look at this as a positive experience in a way, and understanding that as long as I stay safe, keep my children safe. And we're also teaching our kids the sense of responsibility, right? The sense of, life is not going to always be straightforward. It's, there's going to be bumps in the road, and this is a huge bump. Taking the time to educate my children about this crisis. We sit and we watch CNN, and they're like, Mom, why are you always watching CNN? But I'm educating them about the importance of knowing what's going on in your community as well. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks, Kendra. Talk to me, Denise. What are you hearing? What are you seeing in terms of loss and change, and what gains?
Yeah. So grief and loss is the point we're at now. Still going to see a trauma link with that. Okay. We grieve in patterns. So we're all pattern people. And so I imagine that there is a lot of people out there who don't understand their grief right now. So again, I would say that we're patterns. So there's probably things in the past prior to now that are actually surfacing for people too. A little bit like Dr. Kendra, grief is something I've tried to learn to master, given that I don't like to stay stuck in losses. There's always something else to gain. So if something's being taken from you, something else you're supposed to gain. It's just a balance of life. So I'm seeing a lot of, like I said, grief patterns, but that's the same as trauma patterns, and some healing that needs to be done. So I'm pretty on the positive side of grieving. It's the hardest thing we're going to do as humans is grieve. So for everyone that's living right now, this is the hardest part of living, is getting through this transitional phase.
Erica, talk to me. What are you thinking? Grief, loss, change, opportunity?
For me, I would say one of the things that I lost during this are excuses. There's a lot of things that I put off because, life gets in the way and you have so much to do during the day. And so a lot of my excuses for not completing some projects are gone because I have the time. In terms of grief, it's interesting because we were talking about childbirth earlier, and a few things have come up in my feed, and my heart really goes out to the people who have lost people for reasons other than COVID, and also COVID, and they can't attend funerals. They can't be with their loved ones. We've talked about coping within households with people we no longer want to be with, or strengthening family bonds and with our children, but how many people live alone? And they don't have to adjust any relationships. They're alone. They live by themselves. And then to lose someone during this time, now you can't even get support, emotional support sometimes is physical, that hug, that touch, the company. So that's something that I've thought of in seeing people experience loss during that time. And it really hits me, because still grieving from my own losses last year, I can't imagine not being able to get together with the people that you love to share the loss of someone else. So that is kind of my reflection on grief. And in terms of opportunity, again, this being home and having to center on your own children and check their education and check in with yourself, this is a massive opportunity for growth and strengthening relationships. And something that you were speaking about earlier that I did want to touch on is, you were saying, how people coping mechanisms. And I was having a conversation with some people online, and I said, control what you consume. and that just doesn't mean your food or your what you drink, but control the information that you consume. And something we've been doing amongst ourselves are sharing reputable links. Please watch where you get your information from, and perhaps section a time of your day to be updated on what's going on within your community. If you feel anxious, don't look at the whole world. Look at your community, look at what's directly in front of you. Give yourself a 10-minute update, and then turn the news off and go forward with your day. You know, going back to the music you grew up with or things that you loved as a teenager is a great way to spend time during the day. Lots of learning applications going on, but I think that one of the things we can do to control our level of anxiety during something like this is to not sit down and consume 24 hours a day, the statistics and the rates and the stories, because that will only make you more anxious. So I think this is a great opportunity for growth for a lot of us. We are experiencing something we have never experienced before. And there, as difficult as this is, there's tremendous opportunity for change and growth and ingenuity. Necessity is the mother of invention. And I think we are going to think up a lot of very, very interesting, inventive, groundbreaking methods and opportunities like this. So not to minimize the loss, the trauma, the scariness of seeing tents in the street as makeshift hospitals. We have to do our best to protect ourselves and our families, and if you are very anxious, you really have to put blinders on and concentrate on the information that's going to help you.
Yeah, you make a good point there. I think we all have our individual patterns of thoughts, patterns of grief, patterns of emotion, and yeah, really being intentional about what we consume, what we take in. And here's a request for me. I don't know if you guys will agree with this, but I think it would be nice if you're gonna send stuff to people, kind of put a tagline about the kind of information, like a kind of presentation. Like if it's alarming, if it's concerning, if it's frightening, if it's funny, if it's joy-filled, like label it so people have a choice. Because right now people are sending me stuff and I ain't even paying attention. Because once you send me something that triggers my anxiety, you're blocked for a while until, like, because I know I'm coming out of this place of burnout and exhaustion, and I don't need somebody to tell me the world's going to end in 5 days. I really don't need to hear that. What I do want to hear is more about those opportunities. So thank you for reminding me about that. Matt, and then Dr. Joan, and then we'll wrap up. Talk to me.
For me, I'm really missing the NBA, and I'm missing some of the small things, shaking hands and hugging people and things like that, that I think that we've taken for granted.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, what I've actually gained from it, in terms of business, like, things haven't really slowed down for me, because most of the things I do are all excuse me, I got the hiccups all of a sudden, are all online based anyway. But what I have noticed is that instead of watching like a live action NBA game, I've gone back and I've actually watched people that I grew up hearing about that I never had an opportunity to see. So watching Magic Johnson now, or watching old videos of Dr. J that I probably wouldn't have watched previous, or never had an opportunity to do. It's really kind of opened my eyes, and it's given me a new appreciation of what they've done, or even extending that to we like to put out quotes of people like Dr. Martin Luther King and things like that, but actually watching something that he's done, or actually reading something that he's done, taking the time out to go back into the archive, so to speak, for things that may have happened before our time. I think there's a lot to be said for that.
I can definitely appreciate the loss of, the NBA, a lot of sports, a lot of music situations, and the mall, and definitely Denise had a comment here that I'll just read back. She was just talking about the reality that sometimes when we're in a place of recovery from trauma, our lens is negative. So even if somebody sends something, our reaction might be negative. So all the more reason for us to kind of really double down in these seasons and get the support that we need and learn those skills. They're really skills, and they can be learned by anyone to still ourselves and move forward from a place of health and groundedness and peace. Dr. Joan, can you bring us home in terms of what you're thinking, feeling in terms of loss as well as opportunity?
Yeah. So December 8th, my mom passed away. And it was a really interesting experience in that, everyone grieves differently, but I really had a good closing off with my mom, where, we actually had that talk, no regrets. Everything happened exactly the way that it should. And I was able to send her off. But what I found immediately in the aftermath of her death was the release of just a whole bunch of wisdom. And I was so grateful and thankful for all of that. Before my mom died, though, I had a vision. I was simply standing in my office, and this vision just played almost like a movie, where I was looking at first a tree that was dried out, and on it was perched what looked at first like an eagle, and then it turned into a vulture, and then it fell down and it died. And then it was like I was in a desert, and I was brought close to a precipice, wherever this was. It kind of looked like Grand Canyon because it was very rocky, very brown, kind of sandy ground. I was brought to the edge of this precipice, and what I saw was like a disaster had kind of moved through, kind of like a blown out a whole like valley in the midst of this canyon. And from there, I kind of took a look around, and it was just kind of like a wasteland. I saw a tent city that at one point people built and tried to survive, but even the vulture couldn't survive. There was like nothing there. That shifted into a cityscape, and now I was watching a car that was driving with a couple of people in it, and behind them was kind of like this train with a whole bunch of like what looked like dead bodies, but what I now realize are cocoons. People in cocoons, people who need to awaken. So what I'm suggesting is the loss that we are experiencing at this time is bringing in a wave, because what I also saw in this vision was a light that came in. It was just a glorious light. What I'm suggesting is that we are in a point in time when there's a light that's coming in, and all humanity is faced with this light. And though we're in our little cocoons, that we will awaken. So during this time, what I have experienced is just a beautiful time of rest, a beautiful time of creating, a beautiful time of, moving through a whole different awareness. And I think that's what's being offered to all of us. If we are aware that that is what is being offered, then we can move through a transformation journey that I think is naturally going to happen anyways. But to embrace it is one thing. To not be aware of it is altogether different. To resist it is altogether different as well. And we can be in all of those spaces. But what I'm suggesting is at this point in time, it's for all humanity to begin to embrace love, to begin to embrace connectivity all around us. We have people we can connect with in a variety of ways. And I would just suggest that this is the opportune time to do that.
I agree wholeheartedly. And, everyone on this call in their different vocations are people who focus on healing and helping. So we're well aware of the opportunity to grow and to change. And when we heal those parts of ourselves and experience those parts of ourselves being healed, we can emerge better, stronger, wiser. And I think nobody can tell the future, but it doesn't hurt to imagine a wonderful one.
Yeah.
So that's my encouragement to everyone who's watching. Think of wonderful things. Think of good things. Yes, be intentional, be practical, make use of the now, be grounded in the present. And as we think about the future, you might as well imagine something wonderful. If you have thoughts or ideas or questions, things that you want us to talk about in the next time we gather, by all means, please leave comments below. send us information or send communication to individuals that you resonate with, to the information I'll include it in the link below. But I look forward to hearing more wonderful stories from everyone about what they're seeing and what they're experiencing. And until next time, everybody continue to learn, heal, and grow. Bye, everybody.